Today is the first week of a new series we're calling Love, Sex, and Marriage. And in this series, we're going to talk about exactly what it sounds like we're going to talk about. And today is Family Worship Day. So kids in grades 1, this is worth applauding for, actually. Kids in grades 1 through 6 are in the service with us today. And so today we're going to talk about what love is. But every week in this series, we're going to talk about these subjects, and my hope, in all seriousness, is that this series is groundbreaking in many people's lives. Because when we talk about these topics, they have the potential to be groundbreaking in our lives, especially in the light of how these topics have been dealt with, oftentimes quite poorly, by the church in the past. Anyone would say amen to that? If we were going to give the church a grade regarding how well it's addressed these subjects, it wouldn't be a very good grade, would it? You know, if you think about church and society and the messages that have been taught about these subjects, it wouldn't be a very good grade. And a lot of us carry pain from that, but a lot of us carry pain in other ways regarding these subjects. I want to acknowledge that. When you say these words, they mean different things to different people. And even seeing this title could set off alarm bells in some of our minds about things that have, experiences we've had, things that have been done to us. I just want to acknowledge that these topics can be very emotional for us. But the hope is, our goal is that during this series, it would be incredibly healing for all of us, and I'm preaching to myself too. And also, if you're in a significant relationship with somebody, my hope is in the next few weeks, you're going to be able to look back on this series, and you're going to be able to point to an area of your relationship, and you can specifically say, we grew in this area because of this series. You with me? That's my goal. Like, you can look at this and say, we actually grew in our relationship. We got some good insights and nuggets of information, and we're actually doing better now in our relationship a few weeks from now because of this series. That's our goal for this series. And today, the title of the sermon is What is Love? And so I've had the SNL skit stuck in my head all week long, Will Ferrell and Jim Carrey bobbing their heads. Whatever love is, it's not that. I can guarantee you that much. It's not middle-aged men clubbing. That's not what love is. But today we're talking about what is love. Do you hear the song right now? You're going to have that song in your head the rest of the day now. You're welcome. But love is a word that is used flippantly in our culture. We say, I love my wife. We say, I love ice cream. Hopefully there's a difference in the way we love a spouse and we love ice cream, but it's the same word. And it has all kinds of different shades of meaning and strengths of meaning. We also use phrases like falling in love. And we're going to talk about that today and what that means. And is that really what love is? Because a lot of people feel like, oh man, we fell out of love a long time ago. If you're talking about what it was like at the beginning, it's not been like that in a while. So is that what love means? There are lots of definitions and lots of misunderstandings about what love means. And if we expect our relationship to be one thing, and it turns out to be something different than what we expect, we can fall into the trap of thinking that something is wrong with our relationship when it actually may not be. Your relationship might actually be better than what you think it is. Those are some of the things we're going to be talking about in this series. I want to acknowledge this series is for everyone because half of American adults are single. 50% of adults are not married, either never married or divorced. Do you know that? And I want everybody to know that you're included in this series. We're talking about dating in this series. Also, if you're single and happy with that, and you don't really plan on having a romantic relationship, this information is still good because you know people who will. You have children or siblings or friends who need the kinds of healing information that we're talking about in this series, and you can pass that on to them as well. So people are waiting longer to get married in our society, but there is still this desire, this longing to be in a lasting relationship for many people, for most people, with somebody that we love. The internet can help with that now. We have couples in our church that are now married who met on eharmony.com. There's another couple that met on match.com. During the Ohio State-Alabama game, which I loved watching this week, by the way, go Bucks, I saw this commercial. It's a dating service, but it's only for farmers. Did anybody happen to see that? It's called Farm. You already know about it. Farmers Only. No cheating. If you're not a farmer, you shouldn't sign up on that, all right? FarmersOnly.com. The tagline is, city folks just don't get it. So it's either the height of marketing or like the lowest depths of marketing, whatever it is. But, I mean, you could leave your wedding on a tractor, however you want it. But it just shows us that even though less people are getting married in our culture, there is still this longing for close companionship. Whether it's marriage, whether it's a long-term relationship, there's a longing for that kind of closeness, and we certainly hope that love will define that relationship. Also, in your worship folder is an index card you should have received today. Would everybody mind pulling that out right now? And we have pens that hopefully you picked up on your way in. Because, to be honest with you, I'm a little bit humbled talking about this topic. Sometimes I feel like I'm not the best person in the world to talk about what love is. I definitely married up, and my wife is better at creating a loving atmosphere in a relationship than I am, and so I asked her for her input. Honey, what's love? And she gave me a list that I'm going to read later on, and I also put this question on my Facebook page, and I want you, if you would, anytime during the sermon today, to actually share something by writing it down on this index card, or you can email it to lovesexmarriage@onechurch.com. But I really would like to hear from you. My goal is, by the end of the series, we'd have this long list of like love advice that we can publish and give to each other. Does that sound okay? And so I already asked the question on my Facebook page, and I'm going to read a couple of responses. But during the sermon today, I want to invite you anytime during the sermon, if you would write something down or email it to lovesexmarriage@onechurch.com. Here's the question. What is the best love advice you've ever received or that you've learned through experience? And if you would, please write that down on the index card. You don't need to put your name in there on it, and drop it in the offering container on your way out, and I'm going to read these every week. You could also email it to the address on the screen. But what's the best love advice you've ever received or that you've learned through experience? And I got some replies on Facebook that, let's read a couple of them at least. This will prime the pump for you to think if you haven't thought of one immediately. The first person said, the best thing to hold on to is each other. Another one, be frustrated, angry, or upset with the situation or the problem, not with each other. Attack the problem instead of each other. Isn't that good? You know, we can compile a list like this. It might sound trite at times, but this stuff can really come in handy. If you have to have a discussion, they said, to address an issue, then do it face to face while holding hands. And don't let go until it's done. It's pretty good, right? Another one, getting good sleep. Best advice I ever got. That came from a guy. You might be able to tell. Last one, learn to see things from another's point of view and accept that just because something is possible to you doesn't mean it's possible to your partner. It's pretty good, isn't it? So I'm wondering if during the sermon you would add to this list, and I want to read these every week and then compile a list if we go along. So thanks for contributing to that. All right. So sometime in November, I was driving home for lunch, and I was working, in one of the many One Church offices, read coffee shops in the Chandler area. And in our neighborhood, like one street over from where we live, I drove by this in a neighbor's driveway. It looks to me like a brand new Honda with a bow on it. And you probably won't be able to see this, but there's a piece of paper in the middle, and it says Marissa with a heart. How many of you realize Marissa had a really good day that day? So I stopped and took a picture. I'm like, that is so cool, and this is going to come in handy at some point. And you took the picture and went home and had lunch. Totally by happenstance, I finished lunch and drove out, to go to one of the other offices of One Church, read coffee shop. And on the way out of the neighborhood, I actually drove by and saw Marissa seeing her car for the first time. So her parents were in the driveway. She was in the driveway. I didn't stop and take a picture of that. I didn't want to be awkward. I did yell congratulations out the window. But Marissa I rode up right as she saw the car. And Marissa did something like this. She cupped her hands over her face and started fanning herself. And she was like doing this, like hunched over and like pogo stick in the driveway. And she was crying tears of joy, like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Like I got to see the exact moment that Marissa was surprised by this brand new, beautiful car. And it was obvious that she was having a very emotional moment, like feelings of euphoria. The endorphin hits were just coming at Marissa like crazy there in the driveway as she saw this new Honda. So here's what we can be confident of. 6 months from now, will Marissa still love her car? Probably, right? Now, 6 months from now, will Marissa still like cry and fan herself and jump up and down every time she sees her car? Will she walk out of the grocery store and into the parking lot and then just like start bawling when she sees her Honda 6 months from now? Like people in the parking lot would call the cops for Marissa, right? If something like that were to happen. Marissa, here's the truth. Marissa will never have this feeling of euphoria and jubilation and butterflies in her stomach and all of these feelings of, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. She will never have feelings that strong again for her Honda. Are you with me? And what's more, if she did, 6 months from now, if she cried tears of joy every time she saw her car, wouldn't that be a little bit cray-cray? Are you with me? It would be not a little, a lot weird. Correct. Are you with me? Not only will she never have those feelings, not quite like that again, but it would be weird if she did. And we know what happened to Marissa when her parents surprised her with this car. I hinted at it a little bit. Marissa received a massive dose of what are called endorphins. You know what endorphins are? Endorphins are like the Dr. Feelgood of your brain. Endorphins are chemicals that our central nervous system produce, and they make us feel good. They go to our brains. They're actually the similar chemicals to what are found in cocaine or morphine, like endorphin, morphine. You see the similarity there. They're feel-good chemicals. And anytime something is brand new and a pleasant surprise, or anytime that something happens that surprises us in a good way, all kinds of endorphins rush to our brains. It's literally being under the influence of a drug, but it's a drug that our body produces. And so when Marissa saw her car, she was just bum-rushed with endorphins, these feel-good chemicals. Now, the phrase falling in love in our culture is a poetic way of describing what happens when you meet somebody and you have an endorphin hit. Are you still tracking with me? When you have this rush of endorphins that hide every flaw the person has, we call that falling in love. What's really happening is a rush of chemicals to our brains that make us feel really, really good. But like every drug, we build up a tolerance. So where that same thing never produces as strong of an endorphin hit as it did the first time. And so if Marissa's parents wanted to surprise her with a car again, it would have to be like a Mercedes. You know what I mean? It would have to be like a bigger, better, more expensive or something car to even get close to reproducing this massive endorphin hit that Marissa received. And so if you're keeping notes, there's a space to do that on paper, Dunder Mifflin paper, or in YouVersion. The shine always wears off. When it comes to human beings, the shine wears off. The rush fades. Another way of saying that is the honeymoon ends. That's just the way it is with human beings. It has to do with chemicals in our brains. And we actually know that this elevated emotional state that we call being in love only lasts for about 6 to 9 months. We know that. That's about how long your brain will keep producing those endorphins with this new person that you met before they just start to wear off, and the relationship doesn't have that same euphoria-producing effect that it had previously. That's why friends and family and people who love us will encourage us to wait a year or two before we get married. Like, they're basically saying, wait till the endorphins wear off. Sober up first before you make outrageous promises to each other in your wedding vows. Let the chemicals wear off and let your relationship transition into a new phase before you get married. I remember when my sister-in-law and brother-in-law got married, and the pastor who officiated did a great job, and right before the vows, like in a lighthearted way, he said, Jason and Sarah, you're about to make some outrageous promises to each other. It's totally true, isn't it? And before you make those outrageous promises, you want to kind of let the endorphins run down a little bit and have your relationship progress to a new level before you get married. When a couple or one person in the couple doesn't realize that this is just how the human brain is wired, when that endorphin hit stops in their relationship, maybe 6 to 9 months in, there are many people who think something is wrong with their relationship. This also happens when people have been married for 20 years. And as a relationship progresses through stages, they're looking for more endorphin hits. Even if they haven't felt in love, quote unquote, for a really long time, they're still looking for some endorphin hits. But the things that produce those endorphin hits change over time. And so you'll have people who don't realize the shine always wears off. The honeymoon ends. And when that happens, they think something is wrong with their relationship. And there are couples who will fall into a cycle, and it's almost like a drug addiction cycle, where maybe one of them will create drama in the relationship. And then the other one's forced to respond to that. And in the drama and in the responding, it produces more endorphin hits. Do you know couples who have cycles like that? Where it's like they're on the verge of breaking up a lot, but then they make up, and the making up produces an endorphin hit. You know what I'm talking about? And so there are couples that fall into that cycle of thinking that their relationship is always this endorphin hit, and they don't realize that the shine wears off. So the truth is, a long-term relationship feels more like relaxation than a rush. There's a transition that takes place from the rush of Marissa seeing her new Honda or us meeting somebody and falling in love. There's a transition that takes place. And every good relationship has to make this transition in order to last, in order for love to last. And we're still talking about what love even means. So both a rush and relaxation feel good, correct? Feels good to relax after a long day and you're tired and you come home and plop down on the couch. It feels really good to relax. But if it's a different kind of good feeling than a rush. They both could be described as happiness, joy, and good, but it's a different feeling. They're actually opposites of one another. Your body can't sustain a rush long term. Your brain can't do that. Your heart can't do that. Like your physical heart can't do that. But it can sustain relaxation. There has to be a new normal. After falling in love and experiencing the endorphin hit, the rush, there has to be a transition into a new normal of stability, of calm, of normalcy. And that feels more like relaxation. I think that simple truth could save a lot of marriages, because once again, this truth is applicable whether the relationship is 1 year old or 20 years old or beyond. If somebody's expecting some kind of endorphin hit and it's not happening enough, I mean, there are places in relationships, no matter how old, for endorphin hits, all right? Don't get me wrong. But it changes over time. And if a person's not willing to adjust their expectations and realize that, really a long-term relationship feels more like relaxation than a rush, they're going to assume that something is wrong. So when people ask me, when people who are single, well, how do you know when it's the right one? Like, how will I know when I meet the person who's right for me? My first answer is there are 7 billion people in the world. So the answer may not be one. There may not be one person for you. I mean, I believe God can cause people's paths to cross, but I wouldn't get locked into. Sometimes people think it's romantic to think it was fate or that, God put us together and this was the only one on planet Earth. Like, if you think about that in a different way, like, how romantic is that exactly? I married you because that's the way it was supposed to be. Like, I had to. You know what I mean? Like, fate forced me. So there is kind of like the downside to thinking like that as well. So now, once you settle with somebody, I'm a big fan of dance with the one who brung you. So it's okay for you to go ahead and think, oh yeah, that's the one for me. Great. I'm glad you feel that way. But if you're single, the truth is there's probably not one person. But here's how you know when a long-term relationship can work. It's when you can have a conversation with that person, and then you can be in the same room with that person, and you can do that for a few hours, and it's okay. I know that seems kind of a low bar for marriage, but it's just the truth, because isn't that what a lot of times marriage looks like? You have your daily routine, you have work, hopefully you have some time in the evening or whenever your schedule permits to talk together and catch up and connect in a heart-to-heart way. In a few weeks we're going to talk about what men want in a relationship and what women want in a relationship. It's hilariously different. But everybody wants things that have to do with this long-term relaxation in a relationship, that we enjoy each other's company, even when there's not a rush involved. If one of us is reading a book on the couch and the other one's like surfing the internet, like, it's okay that we're in the same room together and we enjoy each other's company. A long-term relationship looks more like relaxation than a rush. And in a church I served in previously, there was a couple, if you can believe this, who celebrated their 65th wedding anniversary. 65 years. They're obviously both in their 80s. They've been together for 65 years. Their names were Denny and Sally. This beautiful couple. And they had their anniversary celebration in the church building where I worked. And Hannah and I kind of caught them, sitting on a bench, getting ready to go into the room where everybody was celebrating. And I said to Denny and Sally, what's the secret? What's the secret of making a marriage last 65 years? And so I guess humor is part of the secret, or at least his best attempt. Denny turned to Sally, and he's like, yes, dear, is the secret. And she gave him a sympathy laugh that she had probably given before, like that's the secret of marriage. But then they kind of looked at us seriously. And you want to hear what they said? 65 years of marriage, what's the secret? They said patience and forgiveness. Patience and forgiveness. Those two qualities and actions of granting patience to each other and granting forgiveness to each other, both of those qualities look a lot more like a relaxation than a rush. It's not really a rush to be patient with somebody when you don't feel like being patient. It's not a rush, definitely not a rush, to forgive somebody when you feel like they've wronged you. That's not a rush. It looks a lot more like taking a breath and thinking it over and thinking what's best for my relationship, what's best for this person, and then making a decision to offer patience and relaxation that's anything but a rush. That's what that couple said was a secret of 65 years of their marriage. A friend posted this pic on Facebook yesterday, actually. Isn't that sweet? According to my math, that's 51 years. So you see this couple in 1963, and they're together, and things change a little bit by 2014, right? And it's just this picture of a long-lasting love. And I'm sure they would say 51 years of being together. Oh, there are rushes along the way. There are endorphin hits along the way. But what really has helped our relationship to be long-lasting is our relationship's more like relaxation. We're comfortable with each other. We can talk. We enjoy each other's company. We view life as like a challenge, and we're a team. And we're going to accomplish goals together. And that's just the norm for us. We're not dependent on butterflies all the time and feelings of, this endorphin hit all the time. We're in this for the long haul. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Relationship that's going to last, love that's going to last, looks a lot more like relaxation than a rush. And then finally, let's talk more specifically about love. Love, if we're looking at Scripture and we're looking for a spiritual definition of what love is the choice to practice a Hebrew word called hesed. Can you say hesed? Hesed. Really, to pronounce it well, it's kind of like the at the beginning. Hesed. Can you say that? Hesed. Without putting something on the person in front of you. Hesed. It's the ultimate Hebrew word about love. It's the ultimate definition of love in Scripture. In the book of Jeremiah, we read about a prophet named Jeremiah who lived about 600 BC in what is now Israel. And he's a prophet, which means he speaks for God. And the purpose of Jeremiah is to remind the people of Israel, sometimes shockingly jolt them and remind them, into the fact that God made a covenant, big religious word, covenant, with Israel. Covenant means agreement. Covenant can also make commitment. God made a covenant with Israel that God would be faithful to Israel if they were faithful to Him, meaning they wouldn't worship other gods. They would kind of live their life in the Yahweh way, God's name in the Old Testament. And God would be faithful to them if they would be faithful, to Him. It's a covenant, a promise, a commitment, long-term commitment. And in Jeremiah's mind, the people of Israel have not held up their end of the bargain. They've been unfaithful. He compares them to an unfaithful spouse who's cheated on God. It's very strong language. And Jeremiah tells the people that they're going to be conquered and taken into exile because of this broken promise to God. And that happens, but there's this shift in the book of Jeremiah around chapter 30 where Jeremiah, when we believe speaking for God, gives the people good news. There's a lot of bad news, but he gives them good news. And he essentially says to the people of Israel, even though you've been unfaithful to God, He's going to be faithful to you. It's nothing you'd ever take advantage of. But God, in His phenomenal mercy and grace, is going to be merciful to you. And we'll pick up verse 31. At that time, declares the Lord, I will be the God of all the families of Israel. They will be my people. This is what the Lord says, the people who survive the sword will find favor in the wilderness. I will come to give rest to Israel. The Lord appeared to us in the past, saying, and here's what I really want you to pay most attention to. I have loved you with an everlasting love. This is God saying this to Israel. I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you, it's like wooed you, like courted you, with unfailing kindness. So God says to the people, even though you've been unfaithful to me, I'm going to be unfaithful to you. The word love there, the first occurrence, is the Hebrew word ahava, which is actually a cosmetics line now. Go marketers again. All right? It means to love, but it's also, it carries the connotation of giving. That what love means in the Hebrew concept of ahava is that you love the person, therefore you will give to the person. It's pretty cool, right? That love is somehow giving. But then in this, the last part of the verse, unfailing love, that phrase is the word hesed. And hesed is a word that even goes beyond ahava, and even the beautiful concept of giving to somebody. And that's what love means. Love means giving. It's ahava, but hesed even goes beyond that. Here are some different translations, English translations of the word hesed. They're all right because it means several things. Check these out. Unfailing kindness. Unfailing kindness. How's that for a definition of love? What will unfailing kindness lead to in a relationship? You know, if you show some unfailing kindness, from time to time, that'll actually produce some endorphin hits. How many of you know that? But it's still, it's a different kind of, it's unfailing, which speaks of over the long haul. Even the normal calm state is that we're together and we're a team, and unfailing kindness. We show kindness to each other. Loving kindness. That's kind of the old King James translation. Loving kindness. Check this one out. Unrelenting love. It's a lot different than feeling in love, isn't it? And experiencing the rush, the endorphin hit, the chemicals that we call falling in love. It's something very different from unrelenting love. It's like, I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, I love you and you can't stop me. I love you and you can't help it. Unrelenting love. That's the kind of love that God shows to Israel. Last one, faithful love. In Scripture, this is the best definition of love we have. When we talk about what is love, baby, don't hurt me no more. This is the best definition we have. This is the ultimate meaning of love in Scripture. You see the same concept in the New Testament. Paul writes in Romans 5:8, he's talking about Jesus, that you see at just the right time, while we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly, all of us. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person, someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And in Greek, it's the word agape, but it's a similar definition to hesed in Hebrew. It's unfailing love that gives and sacrifices on behalf of another person. It's like it's love that's not treating your relationship like a bank account. Where like, okay, if you deposit cash in my love bank account, I'll deposit cash in your love. It's not what it means. It means I'm going to love you. I'm going to take the initiative. I'm going to love you. I'm going to show kindness to you. I'm going to sacrifice for you. I'm going to serve you. And then what happens if both people do that in the relationship? How strong of a relationship is that? If both people take that attitude, I'm going to show the initiative. I'm going to take the initiative, and I'm going to show kindness and love to you first, and you're going to have to try really hard to outdo me. Because I'm going to love you like crazy, with hesed, with agape. And then if the other partner says, well, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to see if I can outlove you. What kind of an amazing relationship could that be? It's the same word for love that Paul uses in 1 Corinthians 13, which is called the love chapter. That's read at like every other wedding, right? Paul's not actually writing about weddings in 1 Corinthians 13. He's writing about the relationship of people who want to follow Jesus in the context of a church. But when he says things like love is patient, love is kind, he has hesed in mind. It's love over the long haul. It's agape. It's sacrificial. It's unrelenting. It's faithful love. My wife is really good at practicing hesed. I'm gonna read you my wife's list. When I asked my wife for the love advice, how do you define love? This is what my wife told me. She said, sacrifice and service. You serve each other. Commitment. Adventure, patience, forgiveness, joy, choosing to see the best in the other. I really did marry up, didn't I? That's a great list, isn't it? And that list sounds a lot like hesed. That love is not like the endorphin hit. When this person, does something I really like, and that's what love is. Love is like a chemical rush. Nah, it's not. In Scripture, that's not what love is. Love looks more like hesed, more like agape. And the truth is, even if you're in a point in your relationship where you feel like there aren't enough endorphin hits, we're in all different places in our relationships. It could just be that showing hesed, if one or hopefully both of you, but if at least one of you makes the choice that you're going to do everything you can to as effectively as possible show hesed, show agape to your partner. It may be that those actions of kindness and those expressions of faithful love and those acts of service and commitment and adventure and giving patience and forgiveness, it may be that actually showing hesed starts producing more endorphin hits in your relationship. You feel like if the fires of love have cooled too much, maybe expressions of hesed, expressions of agape might be exactly what your relationship needs. Tim Keller writes in his book, The Meaning of Marriage, in any relationship, there will be frightening spells in which your feelings of love dry up. And when that happens, you must remember that the essence of marriage is that it is a covenant, agreement, a promise of future love. So what do? You do the acts of love, despite your lacking of feeling. You may not feel tender, sympathetic, and eager to please, but in your actions, you must be tender, understanding, forgiving, and helpful. And if you do that, as time goes on, you will not only get through the dry spells, but they will become less frequent and deep, and you will become more constant in your feelings. This is what can happen if you decide to love, if you make the choice to practice chesed toward your partner. And really, this is the essence of cognitive behavioral therapy. If you were to see a professional counselor, and I can refer you to one if you feel like you need to, many counselors come from this approach. Cognitive behavioral therapy is, my feelings don't control my behavior. If we think that feelings are what determine our relationship, we're in trouble. Because feelings go up and down, the rush, it goes away, the shine wears off. Actually, it's thoughts that control our behavior. Thoughts lead to feelings, which leads to a change in behavior. You follow that? So if you don't feel in love anymore, if you don't feel as close as you would like to, the feelings don't have to determine the future of your relationship. The way you think about your relationship will determine the future of your relationship. Your thoughts toward your partner, the choice, the decision, as Tim Keller says, to show hesed can actually change, thank God, the way you feel. And I'm thankful for that. In my relationship and how my wife has had to choose to love me at times. Because I felt the power of her choice to love and show hesed towards me. That can change your relationship. Those of you who feel like, I don't know if there's hope for us. There is, actually. There is hope for you. Because your feelings don't determine your relationship. Your thoughts determine your relationship, and you can make the choice to show hesed. Before we go, I want to give you a couple of resources quickly. And there are a couple of books. I have a picture of both of them. The first is called The Zim-Zum of Love, A New Way of Understanding Marriage by Rob and Kristen Bell. I talked about this a few weeks ago. It's a great book. I'm going to play a promo video in a minute for that so you can get an idea of what it's all about. And then these would be great resources to write down, by the way. Oh my word, if you're struggling in your relationship, or if you just kind of want to take your relationship to the next level, these are phenomenal resources to check out on Amazon. They're inexpensive, so Zim-Zum of Love by Rob and Kristen Bell. The next one is Love to Stay, Sex, Grace, and Commitment by Adam Hamilton. Adam Hamilton's the pastor who gave the video sermon last week. These are two great resources, Zim-Zum of Love and Love to Stay. New one groups are starting next month, so this month is sign-up month for new one groups. You can go check out new one groups on the information center table and sign up for one. If any of you would like to lead a group, like a discussion group on one of these books, email me, Facebook me, catch me out in the hallway. We'll create a sign-up sheet for you, and you could have your own discussion group if you would like to go through one of these books in the next quarter. But I want to play you a quick promo of Zim-Zum of Love, because I think it really illustrates what hesed can look like, and then I'm going to tell you a story from Love to Stay. So let's check out this Zim-Zum of Love promo. So that energy flow, to me, sounds a lot like hesed. Pretty cool, right? So Zim-Zum of Love, and then the other book was Love to Stay, and I realized there can be a limitation in sermons, right? I don't expect sermons to meet you wherever you are and all the different kinds of dynamics different people are experiencing in our congregation and their relationships, but I could point you to resources. And if these are helpful to you, great. Zim-Zum of Love and Love to Stay. And so Adam Hamilton in Love to Stay tells a story that I'll close with about a couple named John and Denise who were a part of the congregation he started called Church of the Resurrection in 1990. And John and Denise and their two elementary-aged boys helped start this new church. They were in it from the beginning. And Church of the Resurrection, I told you last week, was started with 90 people in a funeral home chapel, and now it's like over 20,000 people since 1990. But before they got involved with the church, Denise had suffered with a brain tumor, but it had been in remission for a long time. And a few years after starting the church, the tumor came back. And this young couple received a diagnosis that would be a nightmare to anybody. And it was terminal. So they moved to Columbia, Missouri, where they were from, because Church of the Resurrection's in Kansas City, to be near family. And so they could help, all band together and help to care for Denise and the kids. And when they knew it wasn't going to be much longer at all, they called Adam Hamilton back in Kansas City, and they asked him if he would come, drive to Columbia and visit the family and pray with them and see Denise one last time. And so Adam, as a pastor, drove to Columbia to comfort this couple. I tell this story in every wedding I officiate now. Because Adam rang the doorbell, and he heard John call, through the door, "Come on in, the door's unlocked." And so Adam opened the door, and he walked in, and he heard John upstairs say, "Thanks for coming." And Adam watched as John tenderly carried Denise down the stairs in his arms. And she was bedridden at this point. And John had given her a bath and fixed her hair and done her makeup the way that she usually did. And John carried her to the dining room table and helped her to sit up on a chair. And he had made bologna sandwiches. And so Adam had a bologna sandwich, and John actually tried to give a few pieces of a bologna sandwich to Denise. And she wasn't lucid most of the time because of medication and in the advanced stage. And so Adam said she just kind of had brief flashes of lucidity, but most of the time, her eyes just revealed a blank stare. And as long as she was able to sit up without, literally slumping over in John's arms the entire time, they visited, and they all prayed together. And Adam led in a prayer to commit Denise to the Lord. And check this out. I'm going to read, the quote's not going to be on the screen, but I'm going to read this paragraph from Love to Stay that Adam writes about his experience. He said, "As I got in my car to start back, I broke down. The tears flowed down my face. This, I thought, is what marriage looks like. It wasn't about a piece of paper. It had long ago stopped being about sex or romance or fun or even friendship. This was marital love, a commitment that John and Denise had made, for better or worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and cherish one another until they were parted by death. This is agape, or hesed, and it's something profound, holy, and beautiful. Perhaps that is a definition of love." Will you pray with me?